This is the adventure of live vlogging. The rain has just started in earnest after I decided to live vlog. So we'll see how far I get. Slutty Sundaes is my fight club. After years, I'm revealing that's the case. How so? In Slutty Sundaes, released 2017, I had a number of characters. Narrator, me, a you character, and various other characters. I deliberately wrote the you character as if it could be a romantic interest. But in reality, the you character is me. More precisely, the you character is my creative muse, which is me externalized as a person. I've often exclaimed that my life, is one long love story between me, myself, and I. That's absolutely true in my case because that's what I've been doing this whole time, loving myself. Now that I've revealed that twist, if you will, I'm disarming myself of previous techniques and tools to hopefully aim for something contiguous but different this time. After vlogging about Jasleen Singh a couple weeks ago, I knew my brain was headed in this direction. I was laying the framework for me to create art again with hopefully less judgment than I have been in the last little while. In talking so in depth about my mom and my white boy kink adventures, I realized the new direction that I'm taking in Slutty Sundaes is introducing my mom as a character and swapping out my creative muse. In order to do so, I'm dropping in to what I looked like when these stories happened. I had wished that I could do it any other way because this look is extremely difficult to contend with when I'm backpacking again. But since backpacking is still a couple months away, I'm in my off season, I decided I can at least retch the creativity out of me in other ways. Instead of waiting for my hair to grow back to the length that it was, I have a number of tricks. Wigs being a trick that I'm using now. I wish that I could be creative whenever, however, but the problem has always been that my creative muse, i.e. me, is extremely finicky. My creative muse wants to create how she wants to create and has no respect for me and how I'm feeling. Okay, so Muse wins since there's absolutely no downside to me being creative in the sanctity and comfort of where I am now, then I might as well. Okay, so my hair looked something like this in all the stories and all of the landscape that I'm about to explore. And before doing so, Timothy Chalamet came across my feed because he's recently buzzed his hair. So I'm doing the opposite Timothy Chalamet. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. Timothy Chalamet is in his gangster rapper era, I guess. So here he is. He buzzed his hair and he looks the part. I'm in my reverse Timothy Chalamet. Hair, Slim Shady hoodie. How do we go from here? Okay. I have 3 themes that I came up with. Chasing the Scream, Verb ing, 3, and they are Playboying, Mark Wahlberging, and colonizing. Those are the 3 shot headlines that I've come up with. Depending on how my vlog goes today, I might lay the groundwork for all 3, or I might delve into one or none. The rain seems intent on being a character in this vlog, so the rain is going to be with me right now. I hear it. There's drips. Drip, drip, dripping. This is the reality of where I live. But I also like to vlog outside. The thing is that sometimes you just have to provide yourself the creative factors that allow you to be what you want to be. Instead of judging, why do I have to vlog live outside with a wig? Just let it happen and deal with it after the fact. So we're going to start a number of years ago, pre-pandemic. My first long run in Africa. Before Africa, I had a number of weeks in Europe. I could have just relaxed. I could have just kicked back, rested up for Africa, which was going to be several months of bush camping amongst wild animals. Given that's the first time I was going to do such an adventure, what would have logically made sense is for me to rest in Europe. But of course, logic sometimes has to go out the window when I'm feeling adventurous. Instead of resting, I decided that couple of weeks would best be to check off a number of the smaller countries in Europe, including many of them: Luxembourg, Liechtenstein, Andorra, Monaco. San Marino. Monaco's the one that I'll mention because this leads in. I'm going to include these details somehow. Okay, so in Monaco, Monaco's known as an expensive country, and by then I had been doing a combination of couch surfing and just literally sleeping wherever, whenever outdoors. The creative abodes of mine included park benches, bus benches, bus telephone booths, meaning that for one night I actually fell asleep standing up. I'm creative and I think I seek out this adventure. Why was I doing this? I just wanted an adventure. So, by the time I had arrived in Monaco, my plan had been that I will stay overnight at the casino, enter, play some slots, maybe some table games, and entertain myself that way. The night before, I had already slept on the beach in Monaco. Already done that. So I wanted to try something different, maybe average, if you will, in Monaco. Back then, I was overpacking. They still allowed free carry-ons on most flights. So I had a personal bag, backpack, and a rolling carry-on. As I rolled up with my wheels to the casino in Monte Carlo that I had planned for the night, the security guard politely stopped me and explained that no luggage allowed. The backpack was barely okay, but the roll-on I'd have to store somewhere. My obvious question was, well, can I store it here? Do you have a coat room somewhere? No. How about you just leave it in your hotel room? Without revealing my intentions, I realized, okay, negotiating seems to be going nowhere, but I continued in earnest. If this was the guideline, how come you never mentioned this online on your website literature? While he conceded that's true, that they should mention it, in all of his years of being security guard, he's never contended with this circumstance before. I already know the situation. Asking people to make decisions on circumstances that they've never encountered usually is a loser in most areas, especially something like this where they can clearly identify you as a backpacker. You're wearing oversized, dirty clothing, so they have a right to be suspicious. I'm defeated. I decide to roll off to the side of the casino and think to myself, well, I could just chill out, walk around all night, and then head somewhere else. An older woman approaches me from across the street. She seems like an average person. Nothing about her tips me off as to what she does. She seems average. Nothing too spectacular or showy, but obviously better than a ratty backpacker. She had observed my interaction from across the street and was here to offer me some solutions. Okay, I'm going to speak in her voice now. The solution that she's suggesting. I observed you from across the street. Here's what I suggest to you. We were within walking distance of a 6-star restaurant, which is right beside the casino. 6-star restaurant, from outside the window, looked like any other 6-star restaurant with the clientele that you would expect at a 6-star restaurant. Mostly rich men and gorgeous women. Okay. This older lady suggests to me that I walk in to the 6-star restaurant, sit down wherever there's a seat, order whatever I want on the menu, and then eat a meal. Okay. So given that I'd just been rejected from a casino where I was planning to stay overnight playing cheap slot games, this seemed like a ridiculous notion to me that I would then walk into a 6-star restaurant and eat food? Well, my obvious question was, while I think you think this is a solution, this seems to introduce more of a problem than a solution to me. Because right now, as I stand, I can just walk around, do whatever I want to do without incurring costs. What you're asking me to do is to enter a 6-star restaurant and incur hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of costs. So how is this solving my problem? Her answer is, you sit down, you order the food, a gentleman will come and pay for your meal. The fuck? A gentleman? What gentleman is going to come and pay for my meal randomly? She keeps explaining, winking a little, a gentleman will come and pay for your meal. I'm being deliberately obtuse, and I am obtuse because I have no idea what she is trying to mention to me. So, let me summarize again what you want me to do. You want me to walk into the 6-star restaurant, sit down, order whatever I want, eat a meal, and a gentleman will come by and join me and pay for my meal. Why? Why is exactly you going to do this? And her answer is, you know why. You know why. I'm like, no, I actually have no clue why. Why? Okay, so she senses my resistance and then suggests, okay, we're gonna go come up to my room, get you cleaned up. Okay, so that's the part. I'm supposed to be presentable before I enter this 6-star restaurant. And that's where I drew the line. I realized what she was trying to ask me to do. And despite that I had just come off a year of kinking, performing at fetish amateurly, this seemed too much because I was incurring a ridiculous cost for no apparent reason to me. So my answer was, okay, I understand what you're trying to suggest to me to do. While I am flattered you think that I can pull off whatever scheme you're trying to suggest, I have no need, no want for whatever dinner. Maybe you represent the restaurant, maybe you're representing women, maybe you're running a MLM, I have no clue, but whatever you're doing, I prefer to just adventure on my own, and I decided to just adventure on my own. So in telling my family this story, immediately, Mom, what are you doing in Europe? You're insane. My guess is she's a pimp mama trying to recruit you, or maybe some fellow observed you and thought that you could be sex trafficked. I have no clue what's going on. Again, hearkening back to my previous vlog last time, I'm pro-work if you want to work, including sex work. But the operative word in that term, sex work, is work. It's still work. So, I ain't working. I ain't doing that shit. I'm flattered you think I could. I really am. But whatever you're suggesting is extremely risky on my part, because what if this gentleman never shows up? Actually, before that even if the gentleman shows up and pays for your meal, which could happen, then what? Then what? I would be in a precarious position. Question is, worse so than me just roaming the streets of Monaco? Yes, actually worse so than that. Actually worse so than that. Because then I be forced to confront whether I want to continue interacting with this person or What? In any case, again, sex work is work. Just having to think about what you need to do in order to make this all work is work. So I fucked off and forgot about that situation. But this has been an interesting scenario to bring up because I was curious. I had checked online, okay, what do Monaco escorts look like? Because I highly doubt that whatever I was presenting at the time, which is worse than whatever I'm presenting now, would be attractive to anybody compared to what is on display. It's just something completely ridiculous. I mean, to be fair, I do have a high self-confidence in myself. I'm happy with the way that I am, including the way that I look. Everything's all natural. I do nothing artificial to myself. I mean, wearing no makeup at the time, hair grown out, and I guess this is positive reinforcement on top of positive reinforcement that I received at these kink fetish festivals. Even though I've never played the how attractive are you game as something that's self-worth related, I'd be lying if I denied that. Obviously, this feels better than the opposite. So, in telling the story, I realized that the ordering's wrong because I thought that this would lead into my first kiss, but actually the first kiss came first. So then, rolling back, what was my first kiss? Consensual, reciprocated first kiss. Mentioned last time that technically, I guess, my first kiss was me playing Sleeping Beauty as a child and little white boy prince kissing me. Yes, I went back and reviewed, and I named a number of different princess fairy tales, all of which were wrong. I name dropped Snow White. Cinderella is actually Sleeping Beauty, the one where she's sleeping and the prince kisses her. So, essentially, the story, the actuality is that at my first kink fetish festival, it's just so fucking hilarious because my mom has always been a part of my life in an integrated way. I mentioned last time that when she found out I was masturbating at age 6, she never shamed me. She just suggested some ground rules, which were only by yourself and in private. I had happened upon masturbation as an accidental rub up because I've always been an adventurous person, climbing on trees, climbing on furniture. So the rub up, I then deemed the tickle of truth, and I've been tickling my truth ever since, which is why I think that I wired myself to define orgasm, self pleasure as my own responsibility, leading to what I think still is my asexuality, aromanticism, meaning no interest in sex or romance. On top of my antinatalism, child-free, single, no kids lifestyle. Okay, so the rain's like, wrap it up, bitch. Okay. In kink, in fetish, when I knew that I had an interest in it, the real question became, how do I explore these concepts in safety? I decided that in Canada would be the safest because there's a collective of people that organize events using best practices. Really, they do. For example, the various fetish weekends and events that run across Canada, I'd argue, are about as best as you can do. They prioritize and center consent at these events. There are no electronics. There's a local event photographer that will take your picture if you want, but otherwise, privacy, anonymity, confidentiality are maintained. My argument has always been there's just no way anybody is going to kill or hurt you in front of an audience of 100, 200 people. That's actually what originally encouraged me to perform on stage, even as an amateur. My first thing that I did. I framed it as that's the first thing I did last time. But actually, before I entered the fetish kink event, and we were doing risk analysis with my mom, we decided that, well, first of all, she was going to drive me to the event instead of me taking local transit, because you normally are costumed up as a requirement to enter. That's their control mechanism against what you would call interloper creepers, who are just there to watch people without being part of the lifestyle. That you can debate about whether that's a good protocol to have, but that's their protocol in any sense. That's their protocol. Okay, so these events, or at least the event that I attended, it's very close to Hastings, which is a notorious North American community. Hastings is probably what you think about drug problem capital of North America. People have described it as a complete shit show. I myself have been to Hastings a number of times. I have always maintained that if you leave the people alone, they'll leave you alone. But in any case, it is what it is. The event was at Hastings, and my mom insisted on driving me because she never wanted me to be wearing lingerie on open public transit. So while we were talking about this, the pep talk, something like, are you sure you want to head in the kink direction first? Is this actually your way of wanting to fuck? Is this you acting out because I had always prevented you or strongly suggested against you being with white boys? What is this? And I maintain that I know what I'm doing. This is the direction that I want to go in. I mean, this comes on the back of me having already contacted a pharmacist, medical doctor, and therapist about my plans. So this is a lot of active self-reflection, knowing, okay, this is what I want because I want the adventure of it. I know that I'm going to have people all up in arms, because I have this argument with people all the time. I think that dick going in holes, whichever hole you want, vaginal, anus, mouth, is basic, bitch. Okay? It just is what it is. That's how I characterize it. I myself, why I'm called the Horley Virgin, is I've never had a dick in any of my holes, right? Vagina, anus, mouth, none of them. All right? So it is what it is. I wanted to explore sexuality in another way, which was basically clefting what I would find adventurous or enjoyable and removing everything else. So with that premise, I had already bought tickets to the local kink fetish weekend that runs, and my mom was having, bordering on a panic attack, which I understand why. This is hard because there's no template about how to support your child through something like this, right? How are you supposed to support? But to be completely in her corner, I can understand, and she, as she's always done, has managed sexuality with such progressive finesse that there's just no way to even contextualize how much she loved me, how much she provided me a safe space to be myself. When we're outside at the entrance of the fetish event, there was what looked like a legitimate cop car and a man in a cop outfit. So we thought he was a cop. Okay? Although there were some cues that maybe something else was happening. I have no clue. Anyways, thought he was a cop. My mom was so overjoyed and decided, okay, I'm gonna leave you at the front entrance with this cop and you'll be safe, right? Okay, so tipping my hand, the cop was just dressed like a cop. He's actually one of the kink participants. How I knew is when my mom handed me off to him, my mom insisted, take good care of her. And his response was, oh, I will take good care of her. So, in any case, at the very least, he did walk me onto the red carpet of the event, which something that I appreciated because instead of drunk punching my way through, I had a direct line to the red carpet event. So on the red carpet, they already ask you to leave your electronics, very like the Dave Chappelle concert, except this one, if I recall, they actually take your electronics off you, or no, they allow you electronics indoors, but there was some control mechanism. I forgot. Let's assume it is Dave Chappelle equivalent. So the red carpet looks like any other red carpet. It's like a red carpet event. And I was by myself, so I thought, okay, cool. There's a photographer, take pictures. That's fine with me. And while I was posing, suddenly one of the lead performers, a Playboy model, walked into my line sight and opened with, "You remind me of a younger me." Before I could even respond with thank you or an appreciation, she leaned in, kissed me. So yes, this is actually my first reciprocated kiss because I kissed her back. Hella fine. She was a Playboy model, so she was fucking hella fine. Gorgeous, what other words can you use? Haughty, smoke show, bombshell. Okay, so we are making out on the red carpet of this event, and I could hear hoots and hollers in the background. At that point, the red carpet was mostly men, so obviously two Asian women making out is going to be something that elicits response. Before too long, her SO, her husband comes and breaks us up to a chorus of boos. And boo is true. I've often joked that oh, if someone, gun to my head, forces that I have to be in some sort of relationship-like arrangement, I've always joked that whoever this man is has to be comfortable with threesomes. Probably the third would be another Asian woman. Otherwise, it's just like fucking no chill. I remember the level of no chill of this husband, this person's husband. He was just scowling face, angry, tempestuous, just how can I describe why I've often had a difficulty in admitting that I had that negativity towards him is because, technically speaking, I want to be completely open to people's kinks and also their boundaries. Clearly, this was a boundary for him, from what I understand. I know that maybe there was something behind the scenes. She was performing at the event. Maybe he was trying to keep her on track, punctual, whatever. I never got feedback on what the reason was, but since I never got a feedback, obviously I'm free to create monsters of people. I mean, this is my fucking story, so I can represent it how I want. But in any case, essentially, that situation has often left me wondering, because while I will still describe myself as non-sexual, asexual, there are situations like this where there's a lack of resolution. So, last time I mentioned that I do get approached by people. Some of these people have been women, many of them Asian women. So that's actually one of my types, if you will. And this is so hard to describe because while being asexual, I still, participate in what you would call about as adjacent to sexual as you can be. Okay, without a dick in your holes, any of your holes, I have done almost everything else you could possibly do. Should I mention them? Well, at the very least, the reason why some people contest whether I'm truly a virgin is because I have orgasmed with other people. They've caused me and I've caused them. So one major oversight in my last vlog was that I never addressed whether that should be a part of virginity. In responding to Abba and Preach and other people who contest that virginity is actually more substance rather than form, then the question is, what is a substantive virgin? I have no clue then what a substantive virgin would be, because then you'd argue at my first kink event, while performing, I orgasmed on a stage in front of people. So, is this considered already losing my virginity? I mean, what a way to do it, right? What a way to do it. First kiss from a Playboy model, having an orgasm or more in front of a crowd of people. That's why sticking a dick in holes just seems so basic, bitch. Really, it does. But I will admit that the scientist, the artist in me has sometimes been curious as to what could be, but it's too little to encourage me in that direction. So this has been the rough throwout of Playboying. This is probably the first rough draft of that one shot. Slutty Sundaes actually started as my attempt to write stand-up comedy. Here's where you just have to let the art flow through as it will flow through. Slutty Sundaes is what the art wanted to be. I wrote it with the intent of, for example, these stories with more punchlines, with more standard comedy structure. Okay. I then realized in order for me to be true to the art, I have to let it be what it wants to be, and what it wanted to be turned into a smut comedy drama narrated in ASMR style. Okay. Too bad. Okay. Will I ever write formal stand-up and perform it as such? Probably no, because the art wants to come out this way. For example, whatever the basis of the story that I just laid down, I mean, there's a story, there's some jokes, but never something that would carry in the way a stand-up comedy would. I mentioned that I watched Dave Chappelle a couple weekends ago, and just the art, the way you present is just fundamentally different. Right? So instead of me forcing the comedy to be in a specific way, I think that what I've come up with in Slutty Sundaes is the truest, authentic representation of what the comedy / art wants to be. So instead of forcing it to be another way, I will leave it to be this way. Besides, we have to address, why would I force it to be a stand-up comedy special where there's no reason for me to? Other people do it because they want this to be their job, and maybe they think that's the most accurate creative representation of their comedy, their jokes, but mine is this way. So the rough plan would be, I'm probably live vlogging my ideas on Sundays and taking that as a template or draft from which I will then punch it up. You know, the stories are there. They're entertaining by themselves. Then the question is, how do I weave in a number of different themes that I want to, and that remains to be seen. But creative muse character seems to be the way that I want the draft to go, so it is what it is. We're running with it. That's it for this Sunday.